1, 2. One mic check. Yeah, we're good. Nahau miigwech nindinoe maga naduk. Thanks for tuning in. This is Stories from the Land. Corn soup. When you put these two words together, most people might imagine a pretty lackluster expression of food. But when these words are mentioned to anyone from the Confederacy of Six Nations or other Haudenosaunee communities, they will smile, they will get excited, and they will tell you about the last time they had a good bowl of corn soup. That's because what corn soup represents is so much more. It became a staple at powwows and social dances because it is the literal expression of the struggles of the Haudenosaunee communities of the Six Nations. Recipes and techniques are passed down from generation to generation, and to make it the right way can take 8 to 12 hours. Some say it can take days. In Fort Erie, two men are just beginning their relationship with this time-honored dish. Karl, a former Red Seal chef, and Edgar, cultural knowledge keeper. Together, they make their corn soup to carry on their tradition, to remember the stories, to feed their community, and to make their humble bowl of corn soup the bowl of legends.
What I said there was in the language there, it says, Ne Sangwawi. He intended this way. He intended us for a scano. It's not just say hello, it's that peace. So we're talking about a peaceful mind. I put my tobacco in the fire, and I put my sense of mind into this. And this is all, it all plays together, because this smoke, it will go up where he lives, how hot ge hanangri, and that's the creator that we're talking about. And I just made our, what they call it, bundling our minds. Ne toge niok tong ne wat ne goha. Now our minds are one. Scano Saguego, Ahosenae ni Gaso, Otayoni de way shout da, ni Gayo Kono de way konzo da, ni Gono Quachoka, Gono Sis, ni Kilcho, ni Hagi. My name's Ahosenae, that's what they call me. And it translates to he's known, or that's his name. Also said there, Otayoni de way shout da, I'm Wolf Clan, part of the Wolf family. And Gayoko no de way konzo da, people of the great swamp, the swampy areas or marshlands. And I also said Ganosis, that's where I go to Longhouse, is Sour Springs Longhouse. And Kiwait Joe, is where I live, is Buffalo Creek.
My name's Karl Docksteader. Tagakedos ni angats, wagaskliwagi ni wagitilota. Anyata agani, hawatsadat ni, wakanahala du, gaikawan slade, tunistil gali wagatsuni ji wagadachade. I said my name is Sunrise of the Oneida Bear Clan, and I gave a greeting that said that it's a nice day and I'm very happy to be here with you today. When I was in my late teen years, I can openly admit that I was suicidal and addicted to pills. So my family put me with my grandmother, and she showed me how to cook. And it gave me a connection to something, and that connection is eventually what I used to climb my way out of a lot of the demons that I had. Those times were dark. Like, those teenage years were lonely, and I felt isolated, and we moved a lot, and I didn't have a connection to anything, but I was connected to my grandma, and she was connected to food, and we were all connected through that, and now I can share that connection with other people. I started cooking because it needed money. I met a chef named Chef Roddy, and he was the first guy who said, you know, why don't you cook? Why don't you become a chef? I was a hotel executive chef, but it's a fast lifestyle, and a lot of stuff caught up with me quick. So I left, like I swore off cooking. This is a pork loin, but it's both the center cut and it's got the rib roast. I like it because it's got lots of fat. Normally, you would use pork belly for salt pork, again, because it was a cheap secondary cut. But it's not cheap and secondary anymore. Like salt pork became this premium, like $15 a pound, $20 a pound sort of thing. So that's going to become the building block for the soup itself, and then that's going to give the flavor to the corn soup a little bit above and beyond the corn and the beans. These are just store-bought kidney beans. These will soak overnight. These will be beautiful tomorrow, nice and soft. I'm going to save this liquid though and use this as part of my cooking liquid because I want every last bit of starch and flavor that's going to come from these beans. I can't talk about corn soup enough. Corn soup is one of the most wonderful things that you'll ever have. It's absolutely tasty. It's also culturally important to us. In my case, I try to make it the way my sister told me that our grandmother made it. I'm presuming she made it the way her mom made it and her grandma made it, so it's a way of traveling back to all their kitchens. The time and love that goes into preparing corn soup is immense. Making corn soup the real way is a labor of love.
Corn soup begins with, of course, corn. Dried corn to be specific. The dried corn is boiled and put through a process of nixtamalization before being washed and added to a bean and protein-based broth. It sounds simple enough, but the nuances are complex.
This is last year's corn. This is where we got lucky. We had about 30 people helping us. This is a fair amount of work. Each one of those people put their thoughts and their energy and their good thoughts and their bad thoughts and the things that they enjoyed and the things that were troubling them. All of that is going to go into the corn that we're going to prepare. We'll just pop these off and they'll just snap off like nothing. And then we'll take one of these and then we'll start one. I'll start the first one with my hand. It's not really great because it's kind of harsh on the skin, but I'll just take these kernels off here. And then that's it. Eventually, we'll have enough for the amount of corn that we need today. We're gonna cook up about 4 quarts, which will double in size to about 8 quarts of cooked corn once it absorbs all the water and everything. So it'll get a nice, good size on us. To keep from cutting my hands now, because you'll actually get little cuts and stuff inside your hand. So to keep from doing that, I can just use this cob now, and then use it to take off everything.
So what I was told is that we take this much, we give back to the animals, and this will be our seeds. Seeds, animals, and then whatever's in the middle is what we ate. So that helped us sustain for the future years. We always made sure we had an abundance. When you see these long braids, it was just a small braid, but the elders, they would make braids like this long and maybe have 30 in one braid. They wanted a secure diet. You had to think at least 3 years ahead. So we had enough food for a bad winter or a big drought.
In 1779, during the American Revolution, the American colonies led by Major General John Sullivan began the Sullivan Campaign. Sullivan's army carried out a scorched earth campaign, methodically destroying dozens of indigenous villages through the use of fire. They also targeted the village's biggest commodity, corn.
The Sullivan Campaign was an active effort by the American army to destroy us as a people. And I think that when you think of the first guerrilla warriors that gave Western colonizers a run for their money, I would say that arguably it was the Haudenosaunee people. One of the reasons that we were able to be so effective is we had food, man. And if you want to be a people, like you have to be able to eat. But where the British were stockpiling gold in a vault somewhere, we were stockpiling our gold. We were stockpiling white corn. From what I had heard, you had to have like at least 2 years worth of corn reserves to get through bad winters, or else you were considered to be a poorer village. So the Sullivan Campaign specifically was a massive campaign of violence and brutality, but centered around the fact that they took away our food source first, and then that's what made us vulnerable. When our cornfields were burned, our reserves were down, and had it have not been for the will of our people to take a seed and to make a point of taking that one kernel of corn and to make sure that they put that kernel back in the earth one more time, then it's possible that would have been the end of all of the Haudenosaunee people forever. Edgar has actually, like, in the process of cooking out here, he's burnt corn, and the first time he did it, I remember looking at him like what are you doing, man? Like, why'd you just throw that corn in the fire? And then he told the story of the burnt corn in the Sullivan Campaign, and like It's almost at the same time that he was like, go ahead and eat this too while I tell you this story. And it was like at the same time that that kernel hit my mouth, at the same time that the flavor hit me, the realization of again, what we had to do as a people to survive hit me.
One little kernel can make a stalk. You take a whole cob and you take off all the kernels, you have enough to plant an acre. Tying back to our ancestors, when they burnt the crops, they took those, it was healthy enough to eat, and they grew these stalks. They did the best they can.
We again have this thing that connects us to that time before colonization.
Best corn soup ever is definitely Oneida style corn soup, and specifically in my family, it's always my grandma's.
Everybody knows that Oneidas make the best corn soup, especially from Oneida of the Thames.
It was a food vendor that used to travel around the powwow circuit. They were known as the Mohawk Soup Kitchen.
You could find the best bowl of corn soup in the world at my grandma's house.
When making corn soup in the traditional method, you get to utilize techniques that most of us would have never imagined. One of these techniques is to use the ashes of other fires to break down the hard hulls of the corn.
We have hardwood ashes that Edgar collected. We'll take a pile like this and we'll just add it to our boiling water with our corn already in it. It'll actually cause a chemical reaction that'll cause nixtamalization in the corn, and that chemical reaction will change the composition of the corn, but it'll also help remove the hull for us.
It's getting pretty close now.
Get in there.
So you can see the change happening. This is my favorite part.
Yeah.
Because you can smell the aroma of the corn. It just brings me back to my childhood, and that's that medicine that we talk about. This brings us this good thoughts. It's certainly nothing that you probably ever smell or can relate to, because it's just so unique.
It has such a roasted aroma to it. If roasted umami was a word, I would say that roasted umami is just that, like mouth-wateringly delicious. You know, you kind of want to go to popcorn, you want to go to roasted corn, but it's different from that. It's its own kind of special roasty flavor. Definitely woodsy, even earthy tones.
It's looking good. It's so this orange here, it's almost all the way off, and we're getting into the insides to open it up. That's what we're trying to do. And these black things here are called the eyes. That lets us know if the corn's opening up.
My name is Gary Parker. I had a chance to teach Karl how to make corn soup, which was a really good feeling because Karl has a culinary background already, which helped make it easier. He understood a little bit more of how to put soups together. It felt especially good because, he had to learn to do it a different way. I didn't know that Karl was going to be the one that would really pass on the tradition as well, but I'm very appreciative that he did, because the more corn soup makers we have is important. In history, we had a lot of corn soup makers and a lot of people who could do it. It's a long process for somebody to learn that, so I'm appreciative that, Karl is also sharing that knowledge as well.
There's something about the health of a cornfield that I think reflects the health of a community. I'm Oneida and you're Cayuga, so we're Six Nations, but we live in the city. Mm-hmm. So I wonder what we can bring from here back to our home community.
It just blows my mind on how when we get together and things happen like this, even like this, it took much work to plow this field.
I don't know if people know how rewarding it is to help with this. At the time it's a really hard day, right? Mm-hmm. But then after the fact, you get to reflect and go, everybody who is a part of this now is a part of something much bigger than themselves, and it's beautiful. And I just would love it if we could have more of that. I imagine that our grandmas could have been really good friends back in the day if it wasn't for colonization and for being driven away from their home territories into the urban environments in both their cases, actually. But I'm glad at least that you and I can be friends, and maybe we can resume a conversation that they never got to finish.
Absolutely. I think that'd be great. I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for your friendship and that we're standing in this beautiful cornfield.
Yeah, we're lucky. We're giving this a wash. This is our first wash, and I think that what I was taught is that this is a good time to again put your words in there, to offer your words of thankfulness. This is one of the few parts where in this process you really have your hands like right in the corn. Like I'm right with this corn right now. So even as I'm talking to you, I feel like I'm one with this corn, and that wherever it came from and wherever it's going to go, I feel like we're just connecting at this point. So I want to bring all the goodness and good intentions and my well wishes for Davey and the other people who are going to enjoy this, and that I want to put all that in there while we're giving it a wash. I'm going to call this my 24-hour salt pork. I'm going to dice this and add it right to my beans, which is going to make a nice tasty broth and build a real good basis for the flavor. And it's going to be strong, but not so strong that it overpowers the corn flavor as well. The corn's got a delicate flavor, so I want a broth that is strong enough, but not too strong. And I think this is going to be a nice balance right here. What do you think, Edgar? Should we give this a try?
Yeah, I really think it's finished there.
Yeah, it looks ready. All right. There you go, my friend.
Should we hold your cup too?
Take a little bit of this here. No, I got this. All right, let's find out. Let's find out how this is.
Spot on.
It's ace.
Beauty. The beans give it a good taste. I think it's spot on.
I got a little bit of saltiness from the pork and the right amount of meatiness, and then I like that fatty taste too. So that's pretty good.
We're gonna give this to Jill Isaacs. She does a lot of community members favors with smoke dance and their regalia, and she has the little ones. We gotta think about all of her kids. She has a big family, has a big heart. I think it's a great way to give back.
And give this one to Geralda Jameson. Geralda's given a lot to our community. Her dad, Kezai, was regarded as one of the better corn soup makers in the community, one of the strongest voices that we had. And Geralda is strong in different ways from Kezai. And I think that that's important, that we take on some of our parents' best traits, but then also that we find different ways to contribute. And she's done a lot for this center, but also for people outside of the center and for part of this community. I love being able to serve corn soup to our elders. It's a real honor.
Corn soup has a very important meaning. We got to remember that our ancestors kept us alive for us, to have today. And it's not just a bowl of soup. There's so much that goes into it. There's a lot of things that happen when soup is going together. You use a good mind, tell a lot of good stories, you share, and all that energy is going into the soup, and it's very meaningful. It's not just a bowl of soup.
For Karl and Edgar, the chance to make this soup only comes along once in a while. It's important to them that they do it right, that they practice the techniques, hone the traditions, and it's important that they share it with their community. That's what this dish is really all about, closing the circle. Yes, you can talk about food sovereignty and use all the million-dollar words you want, but really, at the end of the day, this bowl is about community. Karl, Edgar, and others understand that providing a simple bowl of soup for their families and their community teaches them about so many other important elements of life: community, service, traditions, and history. A little bowl of corn soup can teach you a lot about life.
If I could have a bowl of corn soup with any celebrity, I would have to say it would be Adam Beach from Smoke Signals.
Gotta be Mohawk Honey, hands down. I'd be calling her up and say, come on over, have some soup.
It would be Taylor Lautner from Twilight Saga.
Buffy St. Marie. No question about it. I love that woman. It would just be an honor to bring her a bowl of corn soup.